Hey guys, we are back with another episode of Why the Pros Play. This is a series where professional players who are paid to play the game, are kind of torn apart and analyzed and explained why they pick the heroes that they pick when there's money on the line. If you had money on the line, you're naturally only going to pick the best hero for that situation, and so this is where we are going to analyze that and explain why this is the best hero for this situation. How this series normally runs is I will start it off by explaining why the pros even play this hero. Then I'll explain how the early, mid, and late game is played, so you guys can emulate this gameplay in Storm League. And then sometimes I'll add in a little bit of details of if you were in Storm League, this is probably how you would adapt to adjust, because in the coordinated environment, when everything's going the way that your team wants it to go, it works a lot different from in Storm League when everything is just pure chaos. With that being said, we're going to be watching Henning on Granite Gaming. And Henning is a competitive healer that's been playing Heroes of the Storm for a long time. He's been on competitive teams, including professional teams, back when HGC was a thing. And he is a solid healer that has quite a big roster pool. He's currently playing Anduin. So let's start off why Anduin is picked. And personally, I think there are three major reasons why Anduin is picked by the pros. The first reason is that he can enable a tank with a bad engage to still be your tank and give them another engage. Before Anduin was a thing, this was often in the role of Deckard, where Deckard would be the guaranteed engage for their team, and you would use, you could be able to play someone like Tyrael or Murden who don't have very good engages on their own. And so what'll end up happening is you'll pick Anduin, you'll light bomb someone like a Muradin who doesn't really have a guaranteed engage because he can miss his Q, or his Q could hit a minion or whatever. You can light bomb Muradin, he can jump in, giving him a guaranteed engage, a guaranteed stun. Then he could reposition so he can land his actual stun, making him have a very powerful engage where he doesn't normally have one. Then you can end up playing a tank like Muradin who has incredible stats, or you can play a tank like Tyrael who has incredible utility. But both of them are balanced off the fact that they don't have an engage, so they can be a lot stronger because they don't have that guaranteed engage. That's the first major reason why the pros will play Anduin. The second reason is to enhance an already powerful engage to give it an even more powerful engage. For example, Joanna in both of her ultimates is a great example of something that doesn't have a great engage. But you, or has a great engage, but you give an even greater engage. One of the big things is, let's say, Blessed Shield. You're going to stun 3 people, and then Light Bomb goes off, and you can walk in and scoop them all up with your Condemn into the range of your Light Bomb, and stun them again on top of the Blessed Shield, and then you can do an 80% slow on them to where they can't get away. One of the most powerful engages that you'll see is Joanna with Anduin, coordinating that together, and leading to oftentimes a 3-person kill every time that it's done. We've also seen Joanna using Falling Sword, where you light bomb and then Falling Sword jumps over the target. They get stunned from the light bomb before she even lands. Then she lands and stuns them again, slows them, and then can follow up with another slow. Both are very good, but one requires a little bit more coordination. I highly recommend, if you have, if you're an Anduin player and you play with a friend that likes Joanna, to instead do the Blessed Shield version of the combo, because it's easier to coordinate, it's easier to do, and it's a little bit more effective in actually stun locking people rather than just blowing them a lot. And the third reason why Anduin's usually picked by the competitive in the competitive environment by the pros is because of his powerful trait, Leap of Faith. In the competitive environment, people are much better at focusing on one target and blowing up one target quickly. Leap of Faith allows you to not only give Unstoppable to that target so that if they were CC'd, you can save them, but on top of that, it allows them to rip them away from the potential damage that's going to go off. What it's often used for is to counter something like a Garrosh Throw or a Stitches that's going to hook someone or gorge someone. But it's still just a really powerful ability, even if they don't have that, which makes it often used against a lot of team comps that are heavy at focusing down one target at a time. With all of that being said, those are the reasons why Anduin is played by the professionals and why he is picked quite a bit. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about how to play Anduin in the early, mid, and late game. Early game for me is generally before level 7. Level 7 to about 13 is mid game, and level 16 on is the late game. In the early portion of the game, your goal is pretty much to do your best to keep everyone topped off and try to have really good chastises, which is your route. You can chastise to peel for your team, or you can chastise to follow up your tank. You're going to want to try to stay relatively far away from the targets that might get jumped on so that you can get good long-range leap of faith to pull your team to freedom. And the big thing that you're going to be noticing that he does quite a bit is he is going into the W build while taking Renew at level 1. This allows him to have a very low cooldown on his flash heal, only 4 seconds as opposed to 6, and it allows him to keep everyone in his team relatively topped off. And he throws his W to kind of cover the overall AoE healing whenever he needs just a little bit more than that. So that he always takes a step back whenever he throws out his W. He'll take a step forward, he'll throw out his W, he'll take a step back, and he'll hit as many of his teammates as he can when he uses this Divine Star. He does take the Moral Compass, which allows him to get 2 basic attacks at the end of his Divine Star. And those 2 basic attacks will trigger Renew, allowing him to get a larger heal coming out from the Renew. He also will sometimes auto-attack in between his W cooldown, so he can get an extra Renew proc, but he only does it when the enemy front line's cooldowns are up. He won't do it while the enemies have their cooldowns on a little bit. Level 7, he takes Power Word Shield, and this is a talent that's a little bit debated, but his build is all about throwing more Divine Stars and getting a couple extra auto attacks off. So he does like to use this talent to give himself a shield and make him just less of a target to be jumped on. And during the early game, again, it's all about topping off his team, and he will use his Divine Stars sometimes for some extra damage onto minion waves to kind of speed up the wave clear where he can, and that is something that he does, especially on 3-lane maps where his team might be double soaked. If you can see his positioning right now, he's really far away from the enemies, and he's really far away from his team as well. The reason for this is if he's standing right next to Raynor, and Raynor gets jumped on by an Imperious Spear, he's also going to get hit by that Imperious Spear, and he's not going to be able to save his Raynor. So in the early to mid game, he really likes to position at the max range of his Leap of Faith, waiting for the opportunity for his team to get jumped on. Now, if they ever take poke damage, he'll walk up and get a quick heal. But while he's waiting, he does always stay in range to get a really powerful Leap of Faith. With that being said, he doesn't really do too much here. He attempts to get a root, gets an extra hit with his W, and his shield that he gains from his W also allows him to play just a tad more aggressive when he does go for root like that. His team will likely hit level 10s first, but not by much, so you probably won't see him making any too major of plays, but we will see as the Immortal is spawning in 30 seconds and closing in on 10s. He always follows up any route that his team plays or any stun that his team plays with his Chastise, and he generally tries to save his Chastise to follow up things that his team does rather than try to engage or initiate with it. He takes Light Bomb, and now thus begins the coordination. Now, just because we see this in the competitive environment doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be seeing this a lot in Storm League. It's very difficult to coordinate a Light Bomb with your team. You think all you have to do is throw a Light Bomb on your Murd and he's going to jump in. But the problem is you're paying more attention to your team. Your Murden's paying more attention to the enemy team. So the Murden actually knows the best time to go in. And so if you are going to be doing this combo with a Murden, you need to make sure that the Murden's in comms and says bomb, 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 or something to get you to use a Light Bomb on him before he jumps in at a great time. Otherwise, you may be light bombing your tank to go in at bad times, and you may end up actually baiting your team into a bad fight. So it's best to use this in a coordinated environment or with a Joanna that when she throws out a Blessed Shield, you can always follow up with your light bomb. But in a coordinated environment, in a competitive environment, where the Murden can say bomb, bomb, bomb when he's ready to go in, we're going to see a lot of plays being made by Henning as well as by Dude, I believe his name. So right here you can see the root, or the stun came out from Skoog, and then, or by the Murden, and then he followed up with the root. That's really your bread and butter in the early to mid portions of the game. So he didn't get thrown in, he got, or he didn't jump in, he got thrown in, so he used the pull to get him out, and now he throws a light bomb in case he wants to go jump back in. Now that light bomb probably had some miscommunication. It did not end up paying off, and it didn't end up working the way that he wanted it to work. So again, these are the ones that I kind of recommend against. If you don't really know if it's going to be a good fight or not, you don't really want a light bomb. Because then if you light bomb and your tank doesn't want to go in at that time, he might be too late when he's ready to actually go in. Just be very careful about that. Make sure that you're light bombing targets that are good. And in Storm League, there's also some times where Holy Word Salvation's actually not bad. So if you like Anduin and you like this playstyle, you can still get away without even going light bomb. I do recommend light bomb, but in Storm League, sometimes the lack of coordination. In the competitive environment, I think light bomb's always the option. So with that being said, again, he's just playing safe and he's staying at leap range. Even with leap being still gone for about 10 seconds, he still is staying at kind of the max range for leap. We've seen the leaps so far have saved his team. He's been able to leap Muradin and get him out of really bad situations, and he's been able to follow up just about anything. So in this case, this is a really good light bomb first. When someone gets thrown in, he light bombed, he waited for the stun to go off, and then he pulled him away afterwards to get a little bit more time to heal him up. Now in this case, he's going to take a lot of damage. So they end up losing their Cassia, and they end up losing Misha, and they almost lost the Muradin as well. So we can see, as of right now, it's looking like a rough game. And this is part of the reason why I really liked to pick this game, is because it shows where you're good on Anduin and where you may need to work a little bit. His overall healing during team fights is rather lower than a lot of other healers. It's because he has all this extra utility you have to account for. So as we start reaching level 13, he does continue in the W build and takes Speed of the Pious. And so during the mid game, you really want to get the most value out of your light bombs as well as out of your Leap of Faiths. So early game, it's primarily Leap of Faith and keeping people topped off. Mid game, it's mainly about your utility. Good Leap of Faiths, good light bombs, and that's about it. When we start reaching the late game and we get the lower cooldown on Speed of the Pious, we start making more plays. Right here, we have another great light bomb. Skoog was already going in there. He walks up. He's playing aggressive. He's getting the procs on his Renew every time. And he also got a great Chastise, leading to his team getting 2 kills. One of which they would not have been able to get if he wasn't the team. Now at this point in the game, it's pretty much just getting whatever value they can get while the enemies are dead. Anduin's great at long, sustained fights just because he has great mana utilization, as well as he's just a pretty decent overall healer. Again, less healing during fights, but great healing in between fights. So that's one of the things that he's very good at. Usually Stukov's kind of the top healer. He's the one that's topping all the healing charts, but you'd be surprised that as long as he's doing his job, he can do pretty well. So he grabs Speed of the Pious level 13. What this talent does is it increases your movement speed when you use your W. You can see it moves very fast. The gimmick of this is that you can get a little closer to the enemies, throw your W to hit more of them, getting that 25% increased healing on each one that you hit. And then you can run really fast to behind your team to get really big heals for them. So right here is exactly what I'm talking about. Tank says, bomb, bomb, bomb. He throws the light bomb on Muradin. Muradin jumps in, lands the first stun, lands the second stun, and then he follows up by landing a Chastise, throws out his W, giving himself a big shield, a lot of movement speed, and he can get out of a lot of bad situations. So in this case, that shield was huge for him. Kept him alive throughout getting hit by mind control and a taunt. And now it's just a matter of getting some extra heals, some extra damage, and setting up for his team. And now this is a huge play for his team. He's got a lot of extra healing that he's brought, and they took out 4 people because of a light bomb play as well as his extra healing and survivability. So level 13, Speed of the Pious, it not only increases your movement speed, but now it also says each ally hero healed by Divine Star on its return reduces its cooldown by 1 second, including himself. So at the bare minimum, this talent is going to make your Divine Star an 8-second cooldown. But most likely you're going to hit 2 or 3 people, making this about a 6-second cooldown, and you almost trigger it as often as you're going to be triggering Flash Heal, which means that you'll be casting a lot of Renews for your Flash Heal. Level 16, he ends up going with Inner Focus, which is also a kind of a W-oriented talent. It just allows you to have a little bit more single target healing in burst. One of the things that you really struggle with is that in team fight healing. When you get to 13 and 16, this is where your team fight healing really starts to ramp up, and you go from instead being, hey, let's just land a good light bomb, to, hey, we can actually take these long drawn out fights as long as we don't immediately die or immediately kill them. We can actually take some pretty long drawn out fights. But he needs to hit 16 to be able to get that extra power, because how Inner Focus works is you get to cast your first renew, you get to reset your renew, cast a bigger renew, and again, max range is Leap of Fates. And then you can lower the cooldown of Inner Focus by landing more Divine Stars, which will be on a low cooldown. And so it works really well with his build, but they need to hit 16. So you can see they're playing pretty safe, trying to hit 16, and that's going to begin the late game portion of this video. So we'll let that get a little bit closer. You can use your Chastise or your Divine Star to reveal Fog of War or Bushes, but it can feel pretty bad because if you don't get a lot of heals with this, it goes on a longer cooldown, and this is already a pretty long cooldown. That's also a great follow-up that usually leads to a team fight win. So far, this is a game that they were losing the early portions of the game, and they are not only coming back, but they're ahead by a full level and a half. And this entire time, he's been playing safe, saving his team, and following up everything that his team does with huge amounts of heals, as well as CC and a little bit of extra damage. Anduin's definitely not a big damage dealer, so you won't see huge numbers coming out from Anduin, but you will see a good amount of utility. He's kind of the Swiss Army knife of healers, where he has a really powerful cleanse, he's got a decent amount of single target healing, a decent amount of AoE healing, and a decent amount of CC. So in this case, this is a great fight for Anduin. You can see he has that big crit heal onto the Rexar, and he's able to still get the AoE heals on both of them. If you can't burst down the targets quickly, he's actually great at these types of fights, and these are the fights you want to look for after 16. You make a play with Light Bomb, you get a kill, maybe get rid of some of their damage dealers, and then from there you just out-heal the damage that one damage dealer might bring. So in this case, they're actually slowing down the turn-in just a little bit because they wanted to wait until they had Murden closer to being alive. And they already could protect their own side, and they also wanted to make sure that we had someone starting top camp, someone starting the side camp. And so they're also holding back that camp just a little bit because they want this one to push to top around the same time that Rexar would get that. This is a really major coordinated play you're not going to see from Storm League, but you will see from this competitive environment, especially with someone like with a team like. So as we start reaching the late game, it is everything that you needed to do in the mid game, but on top of that, you have a lot more sustained healing and a lot more single target healing. You just need to make sure that you're getting your heal, the reset, another heal into the W to reset this, and then get a heal, and then reset, heal again. We see, once again, an attempt at a Light Bomb combo. This time, there was a teleport away from Gia to get him out. He uses his trait to get his tank back out, and he starts healing. You're going to see he does that a lot. Anytime that there's a bad engage, he'll be ready to pull them back with Leap of Faith to get his team out and to also set back up. He can heal and then set everyone back up. Right here, we see a lot of damage going out. They take out Garrosh, they take out Imperius, and he's keeping the Murden for the most part healed, but his heal did get interrupted by the Wave of Force. Something that is kind of a major downside about Anduin is that his heals are still cast at times, or at least the flash heal is biggest heal. So now that we're here, I do want to talk a little bit about Anduin and just explain something. Flash heal baseline is your biggest heal. If someone needs health, I see a lot of Anduins because this one doesn't have a cast time. Cast this one first, but this one actually takes way longer to get the heal, and it's half as strong unless it hits like 4 people. So if you just need the big heal right away, it's best to always flash heal the target that needs healing first, potentially double flash heal after level 16, and then go for your Divine Star while you're waiting for cooldowns. So that's the one thing that I want to share really quick before we close out this video. But I did want to share this video because it showed that Anduin can make a huge impact in fights, and it shows why the professional players have been picking quite a bit more Anduin. Is that he can enable engages on heroes that don't have engages, he can enhance engages from heroes who already have powerful engages, and he has a great disengage for heroes on the opposing team that might pull people away from your team. Overall, Anduin is a great Swiss Army knife healer that has a lot of potential, but he does fall a little short in Storm League if you're not utilizing everything here. So this isn't really a hero I'd recommend in solo Storm League. I would recommend you synergize it with one other friend. That's either a tank that you can synergize your light bombs with, or potentially an assassin that might be a dive assassin that you could combo your light bombs. Otherwise, Anduin is a pretty powerful healer. He just requires a little bit of coordination. That is why the pros play Anduin. Thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.